Greetings, viewers. I'm Eric the Car Guy. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm excited because I have what is new to me, an engine that I ordered off of eBay that showed up yesterday. And if you've been following along in this story, I picked up a 2000 Honda Civic that I was going to harvest the engine and transmission out of and use in my oldest son's car. Turns out that engine wasn't so great. I'll link that video down in the description. But anyway, I needed a replacement, and here it is here. And I figured what I'd do is I'd make a video talking about what to look for and why I think this is a good engine. Here's the new to me engine that showed up. It's a D16Y7 Honda engine. It's a direct replacement for that one over there, which is bad. And these are the things that I looked at when it showed up and gave it the thumbs up. Now, the first thing that you'll probably see is that it's pretty darn clean. But that can be deceptive, if I'm honest. And I say this because that transmission looks awfully clean too, doesn't it? Well, I cleaned it with a pressure washer and some degreaser. It used to look like this. So just because the outside is clean doesn't mean the engine is necessarily good. It just means that somebody took the time to make you feel better about buying it. One of the first things that I look at when I'm checking out an engine is I look under the oil cap, because that way you get a chance to see directly inside of the engine and get an idea of what kind of shape it's in. And with this one, it's hard to see like really well, but I think you can see that, well, it's really nice in there. It's not all dark brown. There isn't a bunch of baked on oil on the inside of it. That's a good sign. Looking under the oil cap is easy and doesn't require any tools. However, if you have the tools, it's probably a good idea to remove the valve cover and really get a look inside the engine. In all, that doesn't look too bad. The underside of the valve cover shows a little bit more about what I'm talking about. The more of this type of buildup you see, well, the less it was probably maintained. I'm not really overly concerned about this. I mean, these are older engines at this point, so a little bit of this is to be expected. So in contrast to what you saw under the oil cap on the other engine, this is the cylinder head off of the engine that threw the connecting rod. You can see it's a bit darker. And that's basically what you're looking for. If it's really dark under there, and sometimes you can actually see buildup, that would indicate that probably extended service intervals, extended oil changes, that's what I'm looking for. So the lighter it is, the more metal you see, the better off you are. Another thing to do that I'm going to do real quick here is remove the spark plugs and inspect them. Now, when I pull the spark plug wires out, I'm going to look for traces of oil contamination. And this one looks like it might have had a little bit. You see this brown residue around the outside? Like I said, just because the outside of the engine is clean, that does not mean it was always that way. And right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this could just be moisture or something like that. Who knows how long this engine sat around? But I'm looking for something that's more like this, that doesn't have any type of residue or anything in it. Now, if you're going to yell at me for doing with this with an impact, just try and take these out while it's on the ground with a ratchet. Now, spark plugs are a window into what's happening inside the combustion chamber. It's also a window to service history. Now, these are Autolite plugs, and I never want to see these in a Honda. The only thing I want to see in Hondas are NGKs or Nip and Denso plugs. But these plugs don't look bad. Signs of a little bit of oil burning on this one. That one also a little bit. Yeah, those ignition wires that I took off of, I'm not happy about those either. Once again, it looks fairly consistent with the rest. Well, maybe a little bit of oil burning, but I mean, this tan color and like this is a good sign. But more than anything else, the fact that they all look similar is like the best news, because that means that all the cylinders are contributing and there isn't like a problem cylinder that I may be looking at. With the spark plugs removed, one super important step here is to rotate the engine. I've been burned by this before. Just like get on the crankshaft some way. These rotate counterclockwise, by the way, and rotate the engine around at least one full revolution and make sure that everything moves. Because if it doesn't, well, you want to know that now rather than later when it's too late. Trust me, I know. It's also nice to see that they took the time to block off these ports and things for shipping. And that's another thing. I mean, inspect for physical damage. Something could have happened during shipping, anything. But if you see wires cut and stuff like this, don't be too hard on that. That's actually normal. It's just quicker and more efficient for, removal. But overall, like I said, look around and see if you see anything that just sticks out as far as any type of damage or anything. And once again, just because it's clean doesn't mean it's good, because you can see right down here the dirt behind this crank pulley. I mean, they weren't able to clean that, but it's obvious this engine has been cleaned, and possibly a little bit of paint thrown on it down here. You can sort of see the evidence of that on the gasket. Now on this engine and many engines, there may be a VIN tag. Now you could take that and run it through Carfax or something and look for a collision. In fact, I almost like to find engines out of collision vehicles because that way I know why the car went to salvage, and probably the reason why this engine has been harvested. So you could find a really good engine in a collision vehicle, but look for damage on it, because collision vehicles can also have damage to their engines as well. Now on these crank pulleys, it's kind of soft metal, so look for any damage on these. Also look for any cracks in this rubber part, because that could indicate that there's an issue there, because this is actually here to dampen any of the vibrations that happen during its normal operation. But this rubber can get dry rotted, and the pulley part of the balancer can actually separate. It could have been sitting out in the yard for a while. If you see a lot of dry rotting and cracking in here, you might consider getting another one of these. I don't plan to just drop this engine in and call it good. I'm actually going to go through, I'm going to replace the oil pan gasket, kind of famous leaks on Hondas of this vintage. I'm also going to come around, replace the rear main seal, as well as the cam seal. Now I'll look at the crank seal, and if it's leaking, I'll replace it. And a lot of people, they want to replace the oil pump and things like that down here. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, it's the oil pan gasket that's leaking. Sometimes it's the front seal. Oil pump sometimes, but a lot of people, because they have low oil pressure, want to replace the oil pump. Oil pump's not responsible for oil pressure. It's responsible for oil volume. The clearance between all the bearings in the bottom end, that's responsible for your oil pressure. So that's a misconception that I hear a lot. Anyway, I do plan to go through, replace those seals, also the valve cover gasket and these seals. Distributor O-ring, a big one on Hondas. That's always a good idea to replace those, because especially on these, you can see evidence of what happens when that oil leaks on these hoses. This is one of the coolant hoses. Oil will leak on these, they will expand and get bad and start to leak. So you definitely want to fix any oil leaks in the distributor O-ring. And if your engine did come with a distributor, take the cap off and look for oil down inside. If you see oil down inside of there, then you may need to replace the distributor, or possibly sometimes you can reseal the inside of them. I believe this is a good engine. I think it's going to work for my purposes just fine as a replacement for my oldest son's engine, which I think has a blown head gasket or something like that, but because he lives so far away and he's been driving on it with it overheating for some time, it just seems like a better idea just to replace the engine. I'll keep you updated on that in other videos, but I thought this might be helpful to you if you're buying an engine online like I did with this one, or maybe you're in a salvage yard looking at engines, things that you can possibly look for to help you out and make sure that you get a good engine. Also, from wherever you're buying it from, make sure that they have some kind of maybe warranty return policy, and if they don't, definitely look it over and make sure everything is good, because, well, you couldn't get into trouble in those situations. I'll put links in the descriptions to additional videos and additional stuff about this if you'd like to follow along. I will also put a link in the description to EricTheCarGuy.com, which is where I ask you go if you have automotive questions. Also additional links to places like Pull Apart, where you can get things like engines and transmissions of this type. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time. Bye.